At 30, while many were reaching the peak of their careers, he stood amid the ashes of his own life. His company had gone bankrupt, his bank account was deep in the red, friends had turned their backs, and his family was falling apart. Once a source of pride, he had become a shadow of himself, broken, penniless, and with nothing left to hold on to. There were nights when death seemed like the only way out. But from the very depths of despair, a journey began, the journey of a man who had once lost everything. Before everything fell apart, he was the picture of success. At 30, he owned his own company with dozens of employees, steady revenue, and business partnerships that spanned the entire country. Photos of luxury check-ins, overseas business trips, a new car every year, and a penthouse in the heart of the city, all symbols of the sweet rewards people believed he rightfully earned. He worked 16 hours a day, built his startup from scratch, and climbed his way up through blood, sweat, and a bit of luck. But success came too quickly, and he began to believe he was untouchable. He started making risky investments, pouring money into quick-win ventures, expanding too fast, and trusting in promises from unreliable partners. He ignored the warning signs, convinced that risk was for the weak. Then the collapse began. A failed deal triggered a domino effect. Clients pulled out, cash flow dried up, and bank debt piled on. The final blow came when a trusted partner vanished with a large sum of money, leaving him to face the fallout alone. Within 6 months, his company was gone. The same people who once celebrated his grand opening quietly disappeared, no goodbyes, no explanations. He sold his car, his home, moved out of the office. Everything he once proudly showed off became nothing more than a memory. Many nights he sat alone in a small rented room, staring blankly at a bank account that barely held a few $100,000, numb, like someone who had lost his mind. His life, once solid as a fortress, had crumbled completely. And it wasn't just the money he lost. It was the collapse of his ego, his faith, and even his sense of purpose. After the fall, he wasn't just broke, he was completely lost. In the early days, he struggled desperately in despair. He reached out to a few old acquaintances, hoping for a second chance, but most avoided him. A few half-hearted handshakes, some vague, "I'll see what I can do," or "it's tough for everyone right now," made it clear, when you have nothing left, your very presence makes people uncomfortable. He moved into a cheap room on the outskirts of the city. No more car, no more fancy dinners or overflowing inboxes. Day by day, he drove for ride-hailing apps, made deliveries, picked up small freelance writing gigs, just enough to eat and chip away at his debts. The pride that once fueled him was crushed under every twist of the throttle, every moment spent waiting for a customer's rating with his head down. His mind never rested. Questions spun endlessly: why me? Where did I go wrong? Was it worth it? He thought about letting it all go, truly, everything. Once, standing at the edge of the 10th floor balcony of his old apartment building, he imagined what it would be like to jump. In a few seconds, it would all end. No more debt, no more disappointment, no more pain each time he woke up. But he didn't jump. A call from his mother, a message from his little sister far from home, or just the smile of a neighbor's child when he delivered food, these fragile threads, somehow, held him back. No one said it out loud, but deep down, he knew, someone, somewhere, still quietly believed he wasn't finished yet. So he kept going. Not out of hope, but because of something more primal, the survival instinct of someone who once built from nothing. But this time, he knew he couldn't keep moving the same way. A different journey lay ahead. One deeper, more honest, and with no room left for illusion. Those long, quiet months of hustling became a kind of forced meditation for him. No more ringing phones, no endless emails to reply to, no urgent meetings. For the first time in years, he could actually hear himself think. In between delivery runs, under the scorching sun and layers of dust, a kind of emptiness began to form, not a hollow void, but a space to reflect. One afternoon, while resting under the awning of an old cafe, he happened to see an old friend, someone who used to struggle in school, someone who once borrowed money from him back in their university days. That friend was now calmly typing away, coding at a small tech firm. No luxury car, no designer clothes, but his face was lit up with quiet confidence, eyes no longer filled with the restless hunger he saw in so many others. Their conversation was short, but it left him with a lingering question: what was I really chasing all those years? It wasn't stability. It wasn't passion. Just a string of unnamed ambitions wrapped in the shiny package of success. In that moment, he realized he had once thrown away real values, knowledge, kindness, patience in exchange for speed and spectacle. From that point on, he started learning again. Free online courses, basic self-help books, long nights teaching himself to code, to design, even how to repair electronics. He began truly from zero, but no longer with the mindset of someone who had failed. This time, he approached it as someone being reborn. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace. Not because his debts were gone. Not because he had a high-paying job. But because he was finally living with roots, no longer needing to prove anything to anyone, just staying honest with himself. And that was the moment his real restart began. Once he had built enough strength from within, he began reconnecting with the outside world. No longer did he shy away from crowds or feel ashamed when introducing himself. He was no longer the guy who went bankrupt, he was someone who had survived a painful rebirth. Armed with his newly learned skills, he started freelancing for a small company. The work was simple, the pay modest, but for the first time in a long while, he was earning a living on his own terms, no loans, no pretending. From designing banners, writing content, editing short videos to building basic websites, he took on everything with quiet diligence and patience. He no longer chased anything grand. Instead, he valued every small order, every kind email from a satisfied client. As his skills improved, he launched a blog to share his journey. At first, there were only a few dozen views. But slowly, his raw, unfiltered stories began to resonate, especially with those who, like he once did, were living at rock bottom. He didn't preach, didn't try to be inspirational. He simply told the truth, that he had lost everything, and how he found a way to stand back up. A few former business contacts reached out with congratulations. Some even proposed working together again. But he turned down the easy offers. He understood that returning to the old cycle would mean losing himself all over again. Now, his criteria for choosing work were simple: integrity, honesty, and sustainability. He re-entered society not as someone who had fallen, but as someone who had learned how to stand. He no longer needed a pedestal to feel worthy. He walked steadily, with clarity and humility. To others, he might look like someone who was simply getting by. But within himself, he knew, this time, he had truly come home. He no longer tried to become somebody. No more chasing after success, money, or titles. Instead, he chose a life that simply fit: enough to live, enough to contribute, and enough to smile each morning when he woke up. These days, he starts his mornings early, makes a cup of coffee, checks emails from clients, writes a few lines for his blog, then gets to work. No rush. No pressure. Just doing what he understands, what he believes in. Whatever comes, he receives. Whatever goes, he learns to let go. After everything, he's no longer afraid of failure. Because he's already lost it all and survived. Not just survived, but come out living more truthfully. That rock-bottom moment taught him something no book ever could: reputation, wealth, status, those things can disappear overnight. But what stays, and what matters most, is your resilience and your honesty with yourself. He doesn't erase the past. Doesn't deny what happened. On the contrary, he sees it as part of his flesh and blood, the very thing that made him stronger, steadier, more grateful for life's smallest details. He still carries debt, not of money, but of gratitude, to his mother, to those who stood silently beside him, and to his past self, the one who didn't give up. Sometimes people ask him what the secret is to overcoming it all. He simply smiles and says, "There's no secret. When you've fallen that deep, you either stay down, or you get up. I chose to get up." And so he keeps on living quietly, honestly, without the need for grandness. Because now he understands, true happiness doesn't lie in what we have, but in how we walk through this life, with steady feet and a peaceful heart. He no longer chased dreams that belonged to someone else. He chose to live his life, not loud, not flashy, but full in its quiet clarity. From someone who once had everything and lost it all, he came to understand, real success isn't about what you hold in your hands, it's about what remains when everything else is gone. No one goes through life without falling. But if you can get back up and keep walking, with a heart still intact, still kind, and still grateful, then you're already ahead of most. If you're in the dark right now, remember, the light doesn't always come right away. But as long as you don't let the fire inside you go out, one day, you'll find your way through. And in the end, he leaves just one quiet message for anyone who's ever felt like he once did. Falling isn't the scary part. Staying down is. If you can stand back up even slowly, even shakily, then you, not anyone else, will be the miracle in your own life.